Coming up on Network Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo's government and M23 rebels to hold direct dialogue in Qatar next week. Sahel bloc foreign ministers of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger to visit Moscow, Russia for talks with their Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Plus, uncertainty faces the South African auto industry as US 25% tariff on foreign vehicles set to begin. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde here in Lagos, Nigeria. We begin with the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Congolese government and M23 rebels are expected to hold direct talks on April the 9th in the Qatari capital. The meeting in Doha would be the first between the two sides since the rebels, backed by Rwanda, captured two provincial capitals in eastern Congo. An earlier meeting planned in Angola on March 18 was aborted after M23 pulled out at the last minute, protesting European Union sanctions on its leaders. Until March, Kinshasa had dismissed the suggestion of holding direct talks with the rebels it considers as a proxy force of Rwanda. In mid-March, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame held a surprise meeting in Doha. Qatar has since hosted Congolese government and rebel delegations separately. In the meantime, the United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights has delivered a report concerning the human rights landscape in the DRC. Ms. Nada Al-Nashif is highlighting ongoing violations linked to the offensive initiated by the M23 group in the eastern region of the Congo, also pointing out that since the last briefing to the Council in October, the UN Joint Human Rights Office has worked to provide technical assistance to local authorities aimed at reinforcing the rule of law, promoting transitional justice, and combating impunity despite the recent surge in violence. She also emphasized with deep concern that since the start of the year, the United Nations has recorded over 600 victims of extrajudicial and summary executions carried out by all factions involved in the conflict in the North and South Kivu provinces.
The offensive launched this year by the Rwandan-backed M23 armed group in the North and South Kivu provinces has exacerbated an already dire human rights and humanitarian crisis in eastern DRC. The scale of violence and insecurity have hampered the ability of our office to fully discharge this mandate. Nevertheless, with our assistance, trials were held that resulted in the conviction of a warlord and former militiaman for war crimes and crimes against humanity, for murder, torture, rape, and sexual slavery. Let me underline with grave concern that since the beginning of the year, the United Nations has documented 602 victims of extrajudicial and summary execution committed by all parties to the conflict in North and South Kivu provinces alone. In Ituri province in the northeast, several groups continue to kill, maim, and abduct civilians. Meanwhile, DRC forces and their allies have also attacked civilians. Conflict-related sexual violence continues to run rampant and is being committed by all parties. Cases increased by more than 270% from January to February. Any plans for a sustainable peace must tackle the root causes of the conflict, including the illegal exploitation of the national wealth that lies in natural resources. The DRC authorities must also take a firm and consistent stand against corruption, impunity, and hate speech by whomever committed. As an office, we will continue to support this work wherever possible. This involves the provision of forensic expertise, logistical and financial resources, and support to victims and witnesses. We are also committed to supporting the reform of the Penal Code to integrate provisions that make hate speech a full-fledged offense.
Three Americans convicted for their role in a failed coup in the Democratic Republic of Congo last year have had their death sentences commuted to life imprisonment. The presidency says they were among 37 people sentenced to death last September by a military court. The three were accused of leading an attack on both the presidential palace and the home of an ally of President Felix Tshisekedi last May. The overturning of the sentences comes ahead of a visit to DR Congo by the newly appointed U.S. Senior Advisor for Africa, Masad Boulos. Mr. Boulos, father-in-law to President Donald Trump's daughter Tiffany, is expected to arrive in Kinshasa on Thursday on a trip that would also take him to Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda. The junta in Niger has released 50 people that were linked to a 2010 coup attempt in the country. The announcement comes just 2 months after General Abdourahamane Tichiani was officially sworn in as Niger's president at the National Conference for a 5-year transitional period following a new charter that replaces the existing constitution. A recommendation was made at the February conference calling for former ministers, a diplomat, a journalist, and soldiers to be released. Imprisoned members of the government toppled in the July 2023 coup have also been released. They had been arrested following the takeover that brought General Tichiani, the former head of the Presidential Guard, to power. In the meantime, ousted former President Mohamed Bazoum is set to stay in detention despite international calls for his release. Since seizing power 2 years ago, Niger's junta has cut off ties with its former colonial power, France, expelling both French and American troops from the country. It also quit ECOWAS, moving instead to form the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES, with military leaders in Burkina Faso and Mali. Well, foreign ministers from the Confederation of Sahel States, that's the AES, will be traveling to Moscow for a 2-day visit beginning April 3rd. The bloc, comprising of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, announced that the ministers will take part in a first-ever session of AES Russia consultations, following an invitation from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The bloc adds that the talks will be central to shaping future diplomatic development and defense initiatives. The visit also marks what AES describes as an important step in advancing strategic cooperation under the bloc's Year 1 roadmap, currently being chaired by Mali. Formed by military-led governments following coups between 2020 and 2023, the AES was officially established in 2024 through a treaty aimed at deepening political, economic, and security ties among the three West African countries. Well, let's discuss this further. Joining us now is Osarume Izebokun, a consultant researcher for MORE. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the Sahel states say this meeting is on the invitation of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And since leaving the ECOWAS bloc, these countries have been more aligned with Russia. How will the Sahel states, increase in alignment with Russia, and that's following their departure from ECOWAS, how will this impact regional stability and also global geopolitics?
Well, basically speaking, it's going to further consolidate the sovereignty of the states because as we have it today, it is the more armaments, the more powerful you are, the more your sovereignty, is better confirmed. So basically, what we are looking at is a situation where the AES nations have pushed further to want to confirm the sovereignty and to make it plain to the global society that we are sovereign entities that has veered towards the Russian axis. And as we see the world today, we see it as might takes it all world. In recent times, we've had a nation like Ukraine being overrun, by Russian forces, with various intents or reasons, for various reasons. But then the AES countries have come to understand this, and they are being proactive. And this is why I believe that they are taking these steps. And then I would further want to state that whatever they are doing right now, they are doing such on the basis that they have acquired political power. They have political backing from their populace, because the people see that there is a difference between what they had and then as against what they have today.
Well, so do you think they can, maintain their independence and self-sufficiency in the long term, given their current progress in managing their own affairs?
Totally yes. Totally yes. Because what we see today is that we have evidence. We have evidence. We can look through, the economic history, for example, of Niger, a member of the AES nation alliance. We can see what's happening today. They have factories, they have things to show, and they're actually flaunting it before the people. There's a lot of economic propaganda going on, in that area, of Africa. And this is why I would have, or rather, I would call on the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration to lead ECOWAS in a more proactive way, to be able to stand very competitive, against the AES economic strategies, to stand competitive such that people would want to, or rather, member nations would want to remain in ECOWAS than wanting to envy what's going on, in the progress the AES nations are enjoying today.
Now, speaking of ECOWAS, should this bloc continue to pursue reconciliation with these Sahel states, or rather, would it be more effective to focus on strengthening ties with the remaining member states?
Yeah, I would simply ask that they don't waste more resources into wanting to appease or wanting to talk them back into the alliance. I believe they should take a more economic stance, like I said earlier, take a more economic stance. Let them see that there are more benefits to remain in ECOWAS than to go, to the AES alliance. Now, you would understand that the AES alliance started on the 16th of September 2023 as a defense pact. And then basically they have done this in order to protect themselves because of the way, the Nigerian state, ECOWAS led by the Nigerian state, had wanted to attack them, and so they have developed this. And now it has metamorphosed into an economic kind of bloc. And you see them going to Moscow, going to Russia. And what they are actually going to do now is something that the West should take very important note of. They are going to consolidate, they are going to enforce, and they are going to entrench. And that what that simply means is that the AES nations are going to become more legally stable, more economically stable, more politically stable, because they would have they will be having somewhat like a superpower officially on their side. So I think the world should take note of this, that I am saying it for the first time on Channels TV, that documents will be signed, agreements will be entered into that would further consolidate the stance, the economic stance, the economic stance, the political stance of the AES alliance. So Nigeria should move forward proactively. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government should take this very seriously. They should begin to look at the Nigerian Morocco pipeline initiative. They should begin to establish certain protocols in place that would enforce further economic gains for Africa. And that can only happen with the leadership of Nigeria.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Osarunwe is Zevo consultant researcher. Thank you for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take a break now on the program. Still to come. Ramadan Mubarak in Ghana as Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr with unity, generosity, and a cultural splendor. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. South Africa remains a key player in the global automotive industry, exported top models like the Volkswagen Polo, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota Hilux, Ford Ranger and BMW X3. Last year alone, the country's vehicle and component exports totaled approximately 270.8 billion rand, with 10% destined for the United States, thanks in part to the benefits of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. But now the industry faces a major hurdle. From Wednesday, April 30th, the Trump administration will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign vehicles entering the U.S., a move that could have serious implications for South Africa's auto exports. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, tells us more.
The tariff increase raises concerns over job security within South Africa's auto industry, foreign investment, confidence, and the broader economic impact on a sector that employs thousands. Founder of Magwe Fund Managers, Magwe Masilela, says Trump's trade war is accelerating Africa's push towards economic independence. He views this as a wake-up call for the continent.
The escalation of the global trade war that we know that has been started by Donald Trump, it's more of a wake-up call, not just for us as South Africa, but I think for everyone, that as much as we were appreciating the issue of globalization, globalization has to be in such a way that we don't just rely or depend on one or two countries. So it's just a serious wake-up call for us.
Masilela says industry leaders and government officials should engage in discussions to explore possible response, including trade negotiations and diversification into new markets. But how critical has AGOA been in maintaining South Africa's automotive trade with the US? And could these tariffs undermine its benefits?
The issue of AGOA, it has been very helpful, not just on citrus food, but also on manufacturing of our vehicles, parts and accessories. And hence, the government once had a very good program when it comes to supporting the motor vehicle industry.
As this policy takes effect, all eyes will be on how South Africa navigates this new trade landscape and what strategies the industry will adopt to mitigate the potential fallout. One thing is clear: adaptability will be key in ensuring the country's automotive sector remains resilient and globally competitive. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Semosa, Channels Television News.
In the meantime, South Africa's tax authority, SARS, has recorded one of its strongest performances yet, collected nearly 1.9 trillion rand in revenue for the 2024-2025 financial year. However, this success comes amid significant challenges, including tax evasion and cyber threats like iPhone hijacks. In response, the government has allocated 7 billion rand over the next 3 years to modernize the systems. Commissioner Edward Kwesa has also revealed that at least 30,000 individuals with economic activity exceeding 1 million rand remain unregistered for tax. Looking ahead, SARS has set an ambitious target aiming to surpass 2 trillion rand in revenue collection in the next financial year.
Last night, midnight, the year end. This morning when we woke up, the scoreboard was 0. Last night at midnight, we had 1.855 trillion in the bank. This morning, the bank is empty. We have to start all over again. And so as I think about that, I'm reminded of the famous words of our beloved Tata Madiba when he said, "I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment here to rest, as we do so now, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I have come. But I can rest only for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities. I dare not linger, for my long walk is not ended." Mandela. And that's how we feel on the 1st of April every year. After we've announced a wonderful revenue results, we have to get right back to the grindstone to start out earning.
Still in South Africa, a Nigerian televangelist, Timothy Omotosho, who led the Jesus Dominion International Church in South Africa, has been acquitted of all charges against him. The 66-year-old, along with his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zikiswa Sito, had been facing multiple charges, including racketeering, human trafficking, rape and sexual assault. The case, which has dragged on for 8 years, has been marked by numerous delays since the trio's arrest. The National Prosecuting Authority previously described the verdict as a significant moment in the legal process. Omotosho's church, which had major branches in South Africa, Nigeria and Israel, operated its headquarters in Durban. Africa's influence on the global stage is growing, and a bold initiative led by the Olu of Warri Ogiame Atuwashe III and his wife is driving this momentum. Their goal is strengthening intra-African trade, foster collaboration and amplify the continent's voice. As part of this vision, the monarch and his wife welcomed 18 Elevate Africa Fellows from across the continent to Warri, Delta State, Nigeria, providing them with a platform to engage, innovate and inspire future leaders.
For a long time, Africa's history has been shaped by external voices. However, in recent times, government and public-spirited individuals have been working to change the narrative. Leading the charge this time is the Olu of Warri and his wife, who are promoting cultural exchange, economic growth, and a new narrative that reflects the continent's strength and potential. The 18 Elevate Africa Fellows, selected from over 3,500 applicants, are key to this vision. Their time in Warri is designed to deepen their leadership skills and enhance their contributions to Africa's transformation.
It's an experiential fellowship, as we know, and they're visiting Lagos and Abuja. Lagos, they've been to over the last couple of days, and they've interacted with commercial leaders and even some political leaders as well. However, as founders of Elevate Africa, it was only right for us to bring them to our home, the Warri Kingdom, and to show Warri to Africa, and to show them culture. One of the core pillars of Elevate Africa is culture and identity. And so this visit that has been curated for the 18 African Fellows is to show them an aspect of culture that speaks to the African identity.
It also speaks to how we see ourselves. Yes, I am the Olu of Warri. I am of Ishekiri extraction. But the truth of the matter is, the world is waiting for leaders to step up. And it's a global world. And I like to see and portray myself as an African monarch, domiciled in Warri. So with that lens and that outlook, it will always be open to inspire all Africans.
The 18 Elevate Africa Fellows also participated in the Allying Women Initiative, organized by the Royal Iwere Foundation to celebrate and empower women.
It is not that women lead better than men. There is no evidence about that. And it's not necessarily that men lead better than women, but there is evidence that women lead differently from men. So you cannot have only one gender leading because it's imbalanced.
For far too long, our narrative has been externalized. And so we want to own our narrative and be able to say, look, these great things happening on the continent in the area of governance and leadership, trade, investment, and culture and heritage needs to be well defined, articulated, and communicated. So we say that we are curating, capturing, and communicating history as it evolves.
Another highlight of their visit is the Iwere Foundation's Creative Minds Free Primary School, where young learners are embracing STEM education in a way that prepares them for the future. At the school's STEM lab, students are gaining hands-on experience in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These children are developing skills that will enable them compete in the digital age. Through initiatives like Elevate Africa and the STEM-focused programs at the Iwere Foundation, the Olu of Warri and his wife are shaping a new era of leadership, one where African talent, innovation, and collaboration take center stage on the global map.
In Accra, the bustling capital of Ghana was alive with joy and devotion as Muslims across the country gathered to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Officials say the national celebration is a testament to Ghana's enduring spirit of religious harmony and cultural vibrancy. Thousands of Muslims congregated at the Black Star Square in Accra to celebrate the 2025 National Eid al-Fitr festivities. Attendees were treated to a spectacle of traditional drumming, dancing, and artistic performances, making the celebration not just a spiritual occasion, but also a cultural showcase.
For the prayers.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.